right, welcome everybody to the comic panel. I'm Cody.
I'm Talon.
And I'm Jacob.
And today we are covering The Sheriff of Babylon, issues 1 through 6, written by Tom King, art and colors by Mitch Gerrits, lettering done by Nick J. Napolitone, or no, Napolitano? Yeah.
Napolitano. That's how I pronounce it.
That's right. Yeah, for issues 1 through 2, and Travis Lanham for issues 3 through 6. And cover art and original series covers by John Paul Leon, and The Sheriff of Babylon, created by Tom King and Mitch Gerrits. All right, so Jake, you picked this book a couple of weeks ago. We've had a bit of a hiatus for various reasons. Some might say that this book is cursed.
You could say that it might be, but I was thinking a little more on it, and I think it might be Tom King is cursed.
Oh no, I have a lot of Tom King on my to-read list, so that doesn't bode well.
Well, as long as it just stays on there, it's fine.
I just want to point out that it's my first time on this podcast in a little bit longer than a month. So, yeah.
I was gonna say, like, it's definitely been a while. Mm-hmm. When it looked like we were gonna record like a week or two ago, I looked back at like how long it had been, and even then it had been about a month.
Well, welcome back, everybody.
Yes, good to be back.
Yeah, so why I chose this book? Well, several years ago now, in 2016, Tom King got a run on Batman, and then during that he also got a run on for another title called Heroes in Crisis. And those were generally considered poor. Heroes in Crisis more than Batman. Batman I liked, but a lot of people did not share that opinion. But there were always like people who came out and said like, well, Tom King is a good writer. Just check out his other stuff. Like Sheriff of Babylon usually got quoted out as like, Tom King's a good writer. I don't know why he's not bringing it out for Batman, if that is your opinion, but check out Sheriff of Babylon. That's good. So I was like kind of wanted to see like, what's the deal with Sheriff of Babylon? Because Tom King's really interesting when it comes to comic authors, mostly because ex-CIA. Mm-hmm. And this story apparently has a lot to do with that. I don't think to the point where it's like semi-autobiographical. Probably not. Hope not.
I don't think so.
But yeah, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah. I am so shocked that it was that long ago.
Yeah, I was thinking like of what I was going to say, and it's like, yeah, and this fairly recent. It's like, wait, no, it's not fairly recent because it started in 2016. I think he got kicked off in like episode issue like 70 or 75, and then James Tynion IV like finished that run. Mm-hmm. So like he didn't even finish like the planned 100 issues.
Okay, interesting. I didn't quite realize that he was off early, but I mean, hey, that's kind of also what happened to Dan Slott, even though he had like multiple 100 issues of Spider-Man.
But they didn't kick him like out of DC. Like he's still writing. Like I think he's doing I think it's called Bat and the Cat, like as a miniseries. Like, they didn't even like make him stop writing Batman.
Yeah, which I mean, like,
so what?
To be fair, like I know that there is a significant portion of people that didn't like his Batman, but like I felt like it was like they didn't like a specific choice that he made towards the end of his run, basically. Which I don't know exactly what that choice is because honestly, I've actually avoided spoilers for years. But
well, there's the issue 50 twist,
right,
which is bad.
That was the planned wedding that didn't happen.
Yes, a lot of people felt pretty upset because there were a lot of spin-offs where it's like, here's what Red Hood is doing for the wedding. Here's what Harley Quinn, for whatever reason, is doing for the wedding. And then issue 50 happens, and it's just the message is Bruce Wayne couldn't be Batman if he was happy. So he needs to continue to be upset. And he'd be happy if I married him. So I'm not going to marry him.
Wow.
So it seems like kind of a poor message where it's like, oh yeah, your trauma makes you who you are, and that's all you can ever be. It's like, oh, that kind of sucks.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, interesting. Definitely, like, I wonder. Yeah, I wouldn't say that Tom King's the kind of person that would, like, be like feel pressure from like any editorial, too much. Like, I'm sure what I'm trying to say is that was like his full idea for that story. But like, also I could understand, like, comic book characters need to, like, keep, the status quo or whatever. And that's always to the detriment of the current readership.
Yeah, I mean, I just wish that DC would come out and say, like, you remember when Marvel came out a couple years ago and basically just said, like, yeah, Mary Jane and Peter Parker will never get married. They're never going to have, like, a stable relationship, like, in a comic run. I wish DC would come out and say that about Batman. Because, like, that at least would be more honest.
Yeah, it certainly would. Yeah, it is. I guess, it's funny. I'd never thought of it in a way of, like, it's basically, One More Day? Spider-Man One More Day? Or Brand New Day, whatever.
It's One More Day and Brand New Day.
Yeah.
'Cause One More Day is the story where he gives up the marriage. Brand New Day is then the run after that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different reasons that they give up the married life and stuff, and different consequences too, of course. But yeah, kind of same impact a little bit.
I don't know, not to dwell on this too much, but at least, like, Peter has, even though it's a reason I personally disagree with, he has a good reason. He doesn't want to see his aunt die. And so, you know what? That's fair. I don't know if I'd be willing to sell out my marriage for my, like, adoptive mother to, like, continue being alive, even though she's, like, 90. But whatever. But, like, yeah, the Batman thing really just felt like, okay, we've been setting up for this wedding, and then it feels like somebody at editorial said, like, hey, yeah, we can't have them married. Like, I know you've set up this story this way, and I know we're selling spin-offs on the case that this marriage is actually going to happen, but we can't actually have it happen.
Yeah.
But apparently, like, Tom King, like, at the time, it was very popular to blame Dan Didio for all the bad stuff that was happening in DC. But apparently, Tom King had come out and said that that was not the case, either for Batman or Heroes in Crisis. So, whatever you can say about Dan Didio, you can't say he ruined Batman and Heroes in Crisis, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going back to Sheriff of Babylon with that, though, it was just kind of interesting to me. There's all, like, one that, people were like, his Batman was bad, because I felt like, it was all right except for that, kind of thing. And I'm not entirely convinced that it was all him, there wasn't some sort of pressures. And then also, I'm surprised, I guess, that this book was, like, quoted often as, like, the better thing that you should check out as opposed to Batman.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting book. I don't know when it came out, but it's set in early 2000s during the second invasion of Iraq.
Yeah, it's 2003, I believe.
So it's interesting, especially with, like, now this being, like, 19 years after it's set, and then, like, the world events surrounding the Middle East now, where it's like, yeah, U.S. is completely gone, which would have been, like, sort of like an impossible thought back then. That we'd spend 20 years there, for nothing, basically, which I think kind of frames some of the stuff that happens in this book a little differently.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure like how much I was like thinking of it in that way, you know, because like like when you said just now that you know we're functionally like not there anymore, like at all. Like that was actually kind of a surprising statement, even though it shouldn't have been. I was just like, what? And I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's especially weird for people our age who have basically lived their entire life with some presence in the Middle East, and now that's just like not a thing anymore.
Weird.
Or you just haven't paid attention and
Yeah.
you didn't realize that.
Also that, yes, you just don't pay attention to current events. That's
Yeah.
possible.
Also, so this book came out 2015. Or
Oh,
started.
okay, that's later than I would think, but
So Obama still president. Probably just did a withdrawal from Afghanistan. A withdrawal, not the withdrawal.
oh yeah, because then this would have been like right about the time with the well, not resurgence, but like the origination of ISIS and then the Islamic State.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. Would that have? Do you think that would have inspired Tom King as like now this is the time? Because we're like, I don't know. Would he have seen like, okay, we've got to go back in again that far ahead?
I don't know. I'm not certain about that. I would say that, you know, it might just have just been a coincidence.
Yeah, I guess if we're gonna give a brief summary for this book, which is gonna be pretty brief because it's been a while since I read it. Follows three protagonists. One is former army and is now in not Afghanistan, Iraq, to train the police that will hopefully take over once America leaves. There is Safia, who was born in Iraq, moved when very young, and then got educated in the U.S. and has fairly recently moved back to Iraq and is kind of a power player now. Like is a middleman between the army and some cultural leaders in Iraq and political leaders. And then there's the old cop from Saddam's reign who is now kind of like, I don't know what he does. Like when he's not in the story.
Well, he seems like a detective. But
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
that's
but
in
like,
the story.
okay, when we meet him, he's killing
Nasser.
three.
Nasser.
Oh, Nasir, yes, or Nasir, I don't know. I had to read all these names. Did not
Yeah.
hear them pronounced. So
That's
if I
fair.
get them wrong, I'm sorry. But yeah, Nasir, when we meet him, isn't he killing three? He's killing three dudes. Their allegiances are, I want to say American, but I'm not 100%.
Yeah.
But it is implied in the text that it's like these are people who have killed or committed violence against his daughters at some point who are dead, but don't know if they killed them for sure.
Right.
So like, okay, yeah, and he got those names from Safia. I think, if I read that correctly.
Yeah, I believe so too. I think you got that.
And
right.
that was kind of like a favor, but I don't know how much detective work he had to do to do that. Because like it seems like maybe I'm getting this from the text incorrect, but it seems like people kind of like view him sort of as an untrustworthy figure because he was so prevalent in like when Saddam was in power. So it doesn't seem like he's a community figure or anything like that. It's like his wife is probably more like that than he is.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I guess because that's funny that you say that because at first I was all like, maybe he's a community leader in my head. And then you were like, I don't think he's a community leader. Yeah, like maybe he is kind of like almost like in instead of like the police, it's like almost like a mafia man. Like not like he's actually mafia, but like, you know.
Oh, kind of like a fixer or somebody.
Yeah,
Like
uh-huh.
if you have a problem, go to this guy. He can figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you have a problem, and only they can help. And if you can find them, then maybe you can hire the A-team.
Yeah, but this is just like one kind of old guy.
I watched that movie
Oh,
like
Christopher.
3 weeks
that's
ago,
the,
and then I
that's the
keep
guy's
quoting
name.
that.
Christopher's the American.
Yeah.
Yes, the American.
Wait, was he Army? I thought he was a cop first in America.
Yeah, he was a police officer, and then he joined the military, and then I think he's just see that's what was weird to me. I was like, so you just like, I mean, obviously this guy's like not just like, you know, Army infantry low level person, but like, you know, it seems kind of weird that you're just like, yeah, you trained the police force because you were a police officer, like.
Well,
It
seemed to me like he was like, no, I want to, like, I feel called to help out.
I think
the police over here.
I felt like he was just called to service, not necessarily a specific job in the service. But I could have misread that.
Gotcha.
What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, he probably wasn't just like, you know, Joe Blow infantryman. But I would have to read more to say like what he did in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe he could have been like an MP, which is like the military version of the police.
Mm-hmm.
He could have been a cop and then a military cop. And then it's like, well, you've got transferable skills from A to B and then to C, which is train the cops that we're going to leave here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I guess that makes sense. Yeah. So,
But like it is implied definitely that like he saw combat and has done stuff that is like shapes him currently.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Also, so basically, how this story starts is one of Christopher's men for the Iraqi police. He goes missing and is found dead. And so he gets the help of Nasir to try to track down who killed him and eventually who killed his family, because it turns out that his family is dead also. And kind of just unraveling this, like, you know, this thread that, or it's like kind of a conspiracy a little bit of why, you know, he died. And eventually that brings him into contact with, what's her name? Safia, yeah. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, the only reason I remember it is because like when they went over to the US, they changed it to Sophia.
Mm-hmm.
But like I believe it's the name of a I don't know, probably not goddess, but like a character in a myth that is actually, I don't know if it's a real myth. It could be made up. I mean, okay, yes, it's a myth, so by definition it is made up, but it is probably culturally important to somebody, so I don't want to mess it up too badly.
Right, yeah. No, I remember that part. But yeah, and so like basically, yeah, and Safia is also like kind of going through some of her own stuff. You know, she's like doing like different like dealings with different important people. Like it's kind of like a series of fetch quests, you know. It's all like, oh, I can get you that, and then she goes to another person, and they're all like, oh yeah, I can get you that if you get me this, and then like on and on and on until everybody's satisfied. Just switching around services and things and stuff. Yeah, and I think though that's probably a pretty good enough summary, right? Like, you know, they're trying to track down the killer, and I don't know what is Sophia's or Safia's motivation throughout the story, because it's kind of like things just happen to her.
I want to say like to support her people, like to help get them to a better place.
Right.
Like not in location wise, but
But
like,
yeah. Better.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
standing.
Like it's unclear, not in the way that it's like, not in the way that there isn't motivation, but like it's just kind of like a large motivation. We're just like she's trying to improve conditions
yeah.
for her people, and is willing to get her hands dirty for it. Because she does kill that guy who stole that truck that started the riot. I think, I don't know. It's part of that chain of events where it's just like, I can help you, but I need X. And then you go to who has X. It's like, well, I need Y. And then, okay, if you want Y, you've got to kill Z.
That's
But
the
it's,
end of
yeah,
the alphabet.
Yeah, you got to go all the way back up to A.
Yeah.
But yeah, her story was kind of confusing. Mostly because like I was not expecting romantic involvement between her and Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And also unclear because like killed that one guy and then also gave Nasir those 3 guys to kill. Well, maybe not to kill. Maybe she didn't know, but like I assumed the understanding was I'm going to give you the location of these guys and I'm not going to ask any other questions.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
But like if those were Americans, which went back and looked, unclear what like faction they belong to, but it's not made a huge deal of who they belong to.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that part's not important, but seems like it should be.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not politically motivated. It's personally motivated. It's vengeance. It's revenge.
I guess like this might be getting into stuff I don't like, but it's like if the main I don't know, like the motivator of your story is somebody from this particular faction got murdered. We got to figure out who did it. And that was one guy. Then if in your story 3 people get murdered of unknown faction, somebody from that faction should also care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying. Yeah. And yeah, I'll have to chew on that a little bit because I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure if it's trying to say something with that or if it's just like kind of an oversight. Yeah. So, kind of speaking on that, since that's a pretty good summary, I think, though, what were some things that we liked about this book?
I liked the character work. They all felt fairly well defined as far as, especially, well, like the main side character we meet is Nasir's wife. And there's like most of a book is dedicated to her and Christopher talking about just stuff. It felt like a very real interaction that could happen in this setting.
Right. Yeah. I think I liked the characters to an extent, but sometimes they I don't know, it felt like their complexness was like flat, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know, like they didn't actually feel 3-dimensional. It felt like it was all like, yeah, these are the elements that make somebody like interesting or like a real person. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's what you mean.
Yeah, shoot. I guess I should have saved that for the things that we didn't like. I was just responding naturally to what you said. But I think that I'm trying to remember what I liked because, yeah, I think that there was okay, yeah, what I will say about the characters is that, like, yeah, they are at least they're like kind of, they're respectable a little bit. Like, they have like a kind of a moral code, I think, that isn't always like right, and they don't always like, follow it perfectly for themselves. Because like, yeah, I'm pretty sure like everybody in this story kills. Like, even if we don't see Christopher kill, he's still like, he has killed. I think that's like evident in the story. But like, yeah, they, I appreciate that it's like, so like the first scene that we really see Christopher with is like, his, he's trying to like de-escalate the situation, but because he walked in there, they had to like shoot the girl, that was like doing it because like, he could have died. And I think I appreciated that even though he made the wrong decision, that he was trying to de-escalate the matter rather than like, just keep like being like, okay, we have guns pointed here, He felt like he should get involved in the situation even though he didn't have to.
That does remind me of another thing I liked. Like the book, the volume is titled Bang, Bang, Bang. And there's like a recurring motif through the book of multiple gunshots, but it's represented as like completely blacked out panels with like in big white letters, bang, and that happens 3 times. Like it's kind of dorky, but I did like it.
Yeah, reminiscent of like silent era movies with the sound effect, it's like just like cut to bang and cut back. They're bleeding.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't have anything specific that I like about this comic, but I was entertained by the story, so that is what I can say about it. The characters seemed fine to me. Like there wasn't any obvious, ooh, that was poorly written. Like,
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I think that also, yeah, it was easy enough to read. It wasn't like boring ever, and like so. I appreciate that about it. It was like it flowed well. The pacing was fine. I think.
Yeah, and
yeah, I would agree to a point on the story. But I don't know. We'll get into that later.
Yeah. I will say that a particular part that I actually did enjoy was that stood out to me was the scene with those 3 like they're not like they work for a secret organization within the government or something like that, and they come up to Nasser and Christopher and they're like, all right, hey, I see you guys are hanging out here. That's cool. And then they turn to Nasser and they're like, all right, bro. I'm gonna pat you down, and then this other guy's gonna pat you down, and then you're gonna put your hands above your head and all that. And then it just kind of like got worse and worse. And then Nasser's wife came out, and she's like, "Oh, they're gonna know about the 3 guys. Don't go with them." And the guy's like, "3? Oh my gosh, this is so much worse than I thought. Take them down."
Well, yeah, I mean, like, and they were going to like arrest him peacefully and stuff, but then like because they didn't understand the language that she was using, it just like kept escalating. She was just yelling, and stuff, and then it was like.
And it started escalating even before that too, because Christopher was like, "Well, bro, hey, he's with me. All right, he's good. Like he ain't like that."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Bro, all right, you best, step aside. It's the best for the situation right now."
Yeah, and I think that might have been one of like the ending may have been one of my favorite scenes, honestly. Just because,
I mean, that part of the ending, sure, is pretty good.
Yeah.
But then like. The book keeps going.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, like I looked back because I tried to remember what the end was, and it's like, yeah, that happens, and then there's just like 4 or 5 pages of Saphir talking to some dude in the back of a car, and so the real ending of this book is a whole bunch of words.
Okay.
Oh, I forgot. I totally forgot about what the real ending was.
It's talking about like, are the Americans God?
She's talking with her brother.
Yeah, like, are they as gods? It's like, and then Sophia's just like the whole time, like, no, they're not God. They're just a bunch of dudes. Like, America might be a god, but not these Americans aren't.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of the conclusion, trying to like make a point out of the story, but I'm like, I feel like just I don't know. Do you feel like, okay, so this is I guess another like context question, like being able to look at things from a future point rather than at 2015 when this was written. Like I feel like sometimes the public consciousness is a little bit more aware of like the realities of military/police violence now. And so and I put that together as a military/police, not military police. But yeah. So like I'm wondering, like, do you feel like it was like Tom King felt like he had to like kind of explain it a little bit more in that time, versus now it's like, okay, we get the point, we could have ended it 5 pages ago.
Yeah, I maybe part of it, but I feel like it's trying to be like denouement or like kind of winding down the events before the new events start in the next issues. But it's not, I don't know. I'm glad it doesn't end with like a big splash page of like, here's the villain who killed that policeman in the first issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That wouldn't fit for the story. But there has to be a middle ground between like 4 or 5 pages of really philosophical like talking between two characters who aren't doing anything. They're just driving around. I think her brother's smoking. And like a big splash page that just says like, oh, here's the next issue. Like there should be a middle ground between those two. But I don't know what it would be, to be fair.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. And I'm glad that you mentioned too that it's like, because for some reason I didn't even think about the fact that the series like goes on. In my head I was like, yeah, this is just the ending, the end. But yeah, I guess I didn't think about that it goes on for more issues, so it's like, that makes sense that they're kind of like winding it down, like you said.
Actually, is it only 12 issues?
Oh, I don't know. That would be a question for Google.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's only 12 issues.
Okay. Yeah, just a year-long story, basically. That makes sense. Yeah, like part of me is already like, where else can you take this story, So I'm like, where could you take it past 12 issues even, like without getting, doing something weird, at some point.
Yeah.
The characters have to just kind of...
I mean, I fully expect more information to be revealed on why Safia was blocked in the government for getting the information on Abu something. I forgot his name.
The guy that tried to kill her with the RPG.
Or at least the suspect.
Right.
Yeah. And
Supposedly.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot that happened.
Yeah, it killed her and Christopher's unborn child that he didn't know about.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
oh wow, I forgot that. What?
Yeah.
I mean, because like I feel like I forgot it because like she just kind of shrugs it off. Like, yes, the baby dies, but I don't think we know about the baby before then.
Right. Yeah. It's a military doctor who's all like, yeah, this is what's gonna happen because you miscarried, and we're like, oh, okay, she was pregnant, and now she's not pregnant.
Gotcha.
Oops.
But I mean, like she does kind of shrug it off, but also they do attempt to explain it as like this was a very heavily armored vehicle. Even though it looked like a normal car, it was actually like very armored, and so it makes sense she didn't die. It's like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But I wish I had this explanation before you guys got shot.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, because when she went to find out that information, like they were like, all right, I think it's best you just drop this. It's like, why? Drop it. Why? Drop it, I told you.
Yeah, definitely a very aggressive response, probably because it involves powerful people.
Yeah. Yep. But also, too, like, I read that and I was like, all right, you were wondering if this guy was involved? That's your confirmation right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's if you're ever part of a conspiracy, like you've got to be really careful how you tell somebody to like leave something alone. Because if you tell somebody to leave it alone like that, then they know you're in on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, yeah, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure there was talk of her becoming, like, the parliament leader, something, whatever they call that in parliaments.
Oh yeah. I
Prime
know what you mean,
minister.
like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. When that, government finally became official, so it was like probably an assassination attempt so that somebody else could become prime minister that, could do things that other people wanted them to do, probably nefarious things.
Yeah, could be that, or it could be that like they saw her as like kind of a traitor because she spent so much time in the U.S. and now she's coming back and like trying to run things. How dare she?
Right. Yeah. That makes sense too. Like the United States is like putting her in power, without her actually being a local. Yeah, that's fair. Well, not fair to try to kill her, but that's a fair assessment of what it could be.
Yeah, so I read this book like a week apart. So like I read half of it 2 weeks ago, and then a full week went through, and then I started reading it, or I finished it on Thursday or Friday.
I feel like that's the worst way to go about it.
So like the beginning of it is like I don't really remember.
To be fair, not a huge amount happens. Like I skimmed back through it. They try to go to that guy's apartment to talk to his family, and then the whole family's dead except for the cat.
Yeah,
And they make some assumption based on the cat not being dead.
Yeah, it was like more personal that way. I think.
Yeah, they didn't care who knew. Basically, like these people were like powerful enough that it's all like nobody who saw something is going to say something, because they don't want to also end up dead.
Yeah. And so then Christopher goes around and is like, have you seen this guy? Nope. Have you seen this guy? Nope. Have you seen this guy? Nope. He worked with you guys. Come on. You have seen him. Nope.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's anything else, though, that I particularly liked that I can think of. There were some art choices, but we'll get to that towards a little bit later. Yeah. Is there anything else that you guys had?
Not that I could think of.
Okay.
I'm sure something will come up.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll think of something that's like, oh yeah, I like that part.
For sure, yeah. As happens. So moving on to things that we didn't like. It's kind of boring.
Yeah. Like there's that. Can't really argue that. It is kind of boring.
I will say, like, the whole issue with Christopher and Fatima, like Nasser's wife, hanging out and talking. I was like, well, yes, I agree that was boring, but also I was like, I'm really concerned right now that she's just gonna be like, I just wanted to get him drunk so I could
Kill him?
kill him. Yeah, I was like, when is that gonna happen?
I thought, like, if anything, it was going to be like an affair situation. I did because they were having fun. I didn't think that she was going to kill him.
Because before, like, because Nasser was kidnapped and then showed up at a compound and she was there killing people. At least that's what I think, because he called her his wife.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't really see her face. Like, her face is obscured by the gunfire.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, ooh, she's bad? Is she, like, trying, like, pulling his strings in secret, you know?
Well, because that's when Nasir first gets taken, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, yeah, so, like, that was...
Or it might have been the second time.
Well, no, because she dies the second time, right?
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. I wasn't sure what you were.
Right.
looking
Yeah.
at.
So I'm pretty sure, like, the idea is, like, that this book is presenting, we kind of at least have to take that at face value note, is that, like, there's a lot of moral gray area, so it's like, just because she's killing people, like, everybody in the story kills people, and so it's like, that's just, like, the starting line, basically. And so what the question really was, like, did she kill the right people? Who were the bad guys in this situation? And the way I read it was the people that took Nasir were the bad guys, and
Right.
so she was like, it was morally acceptable for her to kill them.
But to me, it seemed like, and maybe it's just because I don't know how he got from point A to point B, but it seemed like she would have been among their ranks, the bad people in this case.
No, yeah, she just snuck in there and like,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Gotcha. So it was a rescue mission. I didn't see.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I see where you were confused now.
Yeah.
Though. I was like, what?
Yeah, so I thought that the conversation between her and Christopher was just boring. And then it's just like, I don't need all this talking. And then at the end, and Jake, you reminded me of this with Safia and her brother talking. Honestly, I was just kind of like, I not my spidey sense was tingling, but like there are alarms going off in my head because I was like, okay, this conversation sounds like you're trying to make a point, Tom King. What is it? Because I'm worried I'm going to have to disagree, and I do not want to have to disagree with you. But yeah, so
I don't even know what the point is supposed to be at the end of the conversation.
So I was getting the vibe that, and I guess at the end of it, I don't really think that this is accurate, but I was getting the vibe that I'm like, is he saying that America is oppressing Iraq or wherever? I'm like, but I don't think that's what he was saying.
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember exactly. So, like, I think that one of the takeaways that we're supposed to get is, like, in agreement with Safia that, Americans are not gods. America might be a god insofar that it's, like, supremely powerful. They can't do anything to stop the U.S. government from doing something. And so I think that it's like maybe Iraq is going to do what Iraq is going to do in spite of America, because all it has is Americans to try and, get stuff done to America's will, of course. Does that seem...
So you're saying that Iraq is going to try to enlist America's help to help them?
No, more like, whether America wants something or not, Iraq is always going to do what Iraq wants. I think.
Gotcha.
Because they basically, like, they are their people, kind of message. I don't know. That's...
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Yeah.
I was just like, it seems like they were going that direction, and it didn't seem to end that direction. So I'm like, oh, well, okay, I don't know.
Yeah. There's also the possibility that maybe we're supposed to say, like, her and her brother could be right. Not at the same time, but you could agree with one or agree with the other. I suspected that, it could be like, no, like, Safia, was just, what she said was like the end of the argument, basically. But it could be that, like, one or the other is right.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing some more skimming over the end, especially like the last page, because that should be where it like is really summarized. Where it's like, all right, Tom, if you got a point, this is the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to be that, like, okay, we used to have a bunch of gods, and then we were oppressed then. And then we had Allah, but then we also had Saddam who oppressed us. And now we have Americans who got rid of Saddam, but we're still kind of being oppressed. Like, we're still not, like, in charge of our own destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then, like, the last line is, what fools we are to trust these gods. Not necessarily saying Americans specifically, but, like, more like Iraq as a country just being, like, never in charge of itself, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Which
could be, but man, there are, like, you could have said that way faster. And,
yeah. I think that's a much clearer message when you say it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I agree. It probably could have been said a little faster, but I also understand that, people aren't necessarily going to maybe pick up on that or like that message,
yeah, it is only 4 pages, but it's like 4 9-panel dialogue in every one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like a lot of this book is a pretty easy read, but like trying to parse through all that to get to the point, it's like, God, Iraq should be ruled by Iraqis. Like, could have condensed that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If that's your message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now that I think about it too, this kind of connects to, like, basically, even though the stories intertwine, I feel like basically Christopher and Nasir's story ended with that, like, that confrontation. And then Safia's story basically, like, like hers is more about like the rule of Iraq, and theirs is a little bit more about like the oppression that is there. Like, it's like on the ground oppression versus like political oppression, I feel like. And so they're like 2 stories that intertwine, but they aren't the same story, if that makes sense. And it's just weird that one of them involves 2 characters and one only one.
Yeah, that is kind of odd, especially if it is supposed to be like, this reads like it's supposed to be a 3-character book, but it is called The Sheriff of Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like it's only going to be following one, unless like it's a little more like philosophical is probably the wrong word, but like which of these characters will be the Sheriff of Babylon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which, okay, maybe that makes more sense, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably not going to read the rest of this, so not going to find out either.
Yeah, that's a thing, actually, I'll say about this book, is that it seems like it's close, right? It's close to doing something good and interesting. Mm-hmm. It doesn't quite get there. Mm. It's like...
Yeah.
There's good ideas there, just not as well executed as it could be.
Which is ironically like the problem people have with Batman. It's like, yeah, some of these ideas are pretty good, but they're not executed well.
Mm.
Well, I've only heard praise for his Supergirl, so that's one of the things on the top of my list. So I'm gonna.
Is that like Rebirth or before that?
It's just it's after Rebirth. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
Mm. So newer than Batman.
Yeah, definitely newer than Batman.
Gotcha.
Yeah, very recent. Yeah. Okay. So, is there anything else that did not particularly like about this story? I think we kind of covered it, though.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say for a character design, Sophia has a very obvious facial scar, and I feel like that's to make her obviously visually distinct from the other female characters. Mm-hmm. That might be more of an art gripe, but just something I noticed.
So you don't like that?
No, I don't like it. Just make her look different enough that
Okay.
you don't have to add like an obvious facial scar.
Gotcha.
Yeah, unexplained facial scar. Like I'm sure it gets explained eventually, but kind of weird that it doesn't like get explained in the first few issues or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, it is interesting. That's like we are kind of introduced to like a world already in progress,
Mm-hmm.
and like we're just kind of catching these events as they occur. But like stuff has happened before, stuff will happen after that we just don't see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting, but
Executed poorly.
no, I wouldn't say that.
Oh.
I think it's like the world itself is like the setting is executed fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how much I want to give that as credit because it's based on real events, kind of.
Right, or at least the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, how much of that is Tom King's actual work then?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Not saying like, okay, if you're writing a story and it's set in the real world, I'm not saying you're doing less work than somebody who has to make up a fantasy world. Don't let that be the takeaway.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think though that like one thing that he's bringing to the table is that like, you know, it's not autobiographical, but he was involved in things in the Middle East around that time. You know, he has specialized knowledge about how things were from his perspective. That he
That is also true. I should give that credit to him.
So yeah. Anyway, though, so excuse me. About the art. How did you feel about it?
I thought it was fine. I don't have any complaints.
Yeah, fine. I liked that there was some use of like, I don't know what the term would be, but like extra inks to make stuff seem like, especially whenever like they go into the apartment to find the family murdered, it felt like that was very heavily inked. Like it's still obviously like full color, but
Right.
it's like it feels like there's more like kind of ink lines and stuff like that than there are in like the rest of the story.
Maybe
But I did like some of that.
Yeah, maybe a heavier line weight, kind of like
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of like it gives a little bit more importance to it. I feel like, I think that there was a lot of examples actually of differences in line weight because I think when Safia's explaining the myth that her name comes from, I think there it was like it almost seemed like there was no, you know, black ink. It was just like colors put together almost. I can't remember exactly, but it was like very colorful in comparison to kind of the beiginess of everything else.
When did she explain that?
Excuse me.
When did she explain that? Yep.
So yeah, I think that was probably she's definitely explaining it to a person, and maybe when she's talking to Christopher at one point. I think-
No, it's at the beginning of issue 4 when
okay.
she's like recovering from her car getting hit by the RPG.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. I'm looking at it again, and there are very little like you can still see like when textures end, but there's very little like line weight in there.
Yeah. And so like, yeah, I think that in that way it's like this is less real, you know, because it's a myth. And then things that are very, very real and visceral, like the death of that family and the cat, you know, eating them. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. An interesting.
Yeah, I
choice.
like the overall like I think there's a lot of I'm always saying this like there's a lot of texture to the images we see, and I'm always a sucker for that basically.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's well executed art. It doesn't really do anything other than that myth. It doesn't really do anything spectacular or like kind of out of the box. But I don't think every story has to. Like it's
Yeah. I will say, you know, Mitch Gerrard's
Not Kira.
Gerard,
Right?
Gerard, I don't know. It could be a
Gerard's.
soft G.
Yeah, he's a common collaborator with Tom King, and he's done some very interesting, more experimental art before. So this is maybe just his more standard style.
And to be fair, like at the end of this book, there's actually a somewhat in-depth explanation of Gerard's process of like how he puts together the page and what he does to. So he uses a lot of photo reference apparently, and this is like a digitally done book, so he does a lot of Photoshop reference. So pretty interesting. It wasn't really my cup of tea, but it was still interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I definitely saw that part of the book, and then I forgot to check it out more.
I think it's only 1 or 2 pages. It's not like I said. It's somewhat in depth. It's obviously not like a step by step. It's more for a layman. How do I take the script and put it onto a page?
Mm-hmm. But still, yeah, I would have found that interesting. I just forgot to go back to it. And I like when they have that kind of bonus content like that, whatever they want to provide, whether it's covers or interviews or such things. Yeah, but I agree, it was fine artwork. It didn't do anything that was like, super noticeable, but yeah, it worked for the story. It was appropriately grounded for a grounded story. Yeah.
Gotcha. So earlier in the things, I think it was the things I do like. You were like, oh, there's some art things, but
it was about the myth part.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that was interesting to me. And it definitely like it wasn't even like going back through. It was like I noticed that immediately while I was reading. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, it is always interesting, like a story with a somewhat defined sort of like visual style changes that, even for a couple pages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if anything, I would have liked them to like go back to that, like maybe when they were talking about like whether America was a god or whatever, like that'd be interesting.
Yeah, that could at least made it like visually interesting. Like even if they do want to keep all that dialogue, you could change up because yeah, it's either them in a car or like faded out like flashback to the like Americans on Humvees and like Bradleys and stuff like that. It's like, but nothing's happening. Like there's no action. It's just the dialogue.
Yeah, I think those pages probably would have worked a lot better if it was basically like instead of dialogue boxes doing caption boxes over like activities and things happening.
Yeah, that is, I said earlier I didn't have any ideas. That's a pretty good idea for changing that to make it a little more palatable. Because otherwise it's just, I don't even know how it got past the editor. It's just 4 pages of people talking. After we just saw almost a main character, so it was like one of the only named side characters. We just saw it die. Feel like we should get a little more fallout from that, other than during the dialogue we see her on a morgue slab.
Right.
So,
yeah.
just feel like could have done a little bit more there. Especially after the last issue was all about you and one of the actual main characters talking for the whole issue.
Yeah. And like, that was, I guess, kind of cycling back a little bit to things that I didn't like. I liked some of the characterization that conversation brought, but it also felt a little bit like, okay, we have to characterize this person because we're about to kill her, and so we want the audience to feel something about that,
Yeah, I did not recognize that as a death flag until I like went back and like, oh yeah, this is a big red dead flag.
Yeah, so it was like, man, you could have kept her around for like another issue or something, like not that I wanted the story to be expanded more somehow, but like just the fact that it was all like, all right, you get to know her and now bam, she's dead. It's like, okay, it just feels a little cheap.
What if it was the alcohol got poisoned.
So then Christopher would be dead too.
I mean, yes.
Yeah, and why is there poisoned alcohol in like the army like supply depot?
It was specifically
How'd that
planted.
get there?
People did not like Nasser and Fatima to be there. So
But they didn't know they were gonna go drink it. And
Yeah.
Nasir
Hey.
didn't drink any of it.
Yeah. What I'll say is that
what I mean to say is just like right at the end of that issue. What if she were to die?
well, yeah, that also wouldn't be.
That would have been worse.
Yeah, that
Really?
would be worse.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Because then it would be like we didn't get any time for her to like really sink in as a character. It's just all like, yeah, now you're like, oh yeah, this person's kind of all right, and then dead. You
Yeah.
know, it would be
Yeah.
like I want her to exist in the hearts and minds of the audience a little bit longer.
Ah, gosh.
You know, otherwise it just feels like the only reason we told you about this character is so that we could rip her out. You know.
That's fair. Fair assessment.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think I'm skipping anything.
Only thing would be like if we were gonna read any more.
Yeah.
Any of this story, maybe one day, like as a lark, but not for a while.
Yeah.
More
Wait,
Tom
huh?
King.
You say lark?
I don't know.
Yeah, lark.
Yeah, as a lark.
I don't know what that means.
It's like just because or like as a joke kind of. Like,
Like I
okay.
might get the feeling one day to do it, but until then, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
All right then.
More Tom King. Man, I don't know. I read most of his Batman, and it kind of had the same problems as this did, where it's like you can tell there are some big ideas that he wants to apply, but the writing never seems to meet up with like the how good those good ideas are.
Interesting.
And it's a problem here. It's a problem in Batman. I'm not going to say it's the same problem as Heroes in Crisis. I think Heroes in Crisis has a different problem, but I'm not 100% sure what that problem is.
Right. Yeah. I remember enjoying his Mr. Miracle, and that won an Eisner Award. Best comic of the year, basically. I don't know, best writer. I can't remember. Something like that.
That might be, I might check that out one day.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, if you asked me what happens in Mr. Miracle, I'd be like, I don't entirely remember. Something, Mr. Miracle might be Darkseid's kid, and he might be becoming Darkseid because Darkseid is dead, maybe. But then he also has a kid.
Who then becomes Darkseid?
No, luckily no. He just has a kid with Big Barda.
Oh, Mr. Miracle. Oh, okay. I was thinking of Mr. Terrific. I was like,
Yeah, but like the actual like details of what happens, and so that almost makes me worried that it's kind of boring, like this one was. But I don't know, like, you know, the fact that it's set in a superhero world, you know, even though it's like kind of known for being a little bit more mundane in a superhero world, I think that there's enough like stakes and like dramatic action, I think, for that one. So yeah, basically what I'm saying is Tom King is not dead to me. I will read more Tom King.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm more like depends on what I see. Like if there's something that comes out, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, it's by Tom King. Oh.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I agree with Jake. I really don't have like, I mean, I'm already hard pressed to want to read anything that's a military story. You know, it's all like, Jake, why'd you pick this? But I know that you do sometimes like military stories like that.
Yeah, sometimes it's just something different.
Yeah. Yeah, I am less inclined to pick those, so definitely less inclined to read more of this. Like, I don't really care.
Jake, I thought your eyes went huge for a second before you answered that.
No, it's
And just to clarify, Talon, would you read more of this particular story?
Probably not. But also, it's not an easy probably not. So I'll get a compliment in that.
Yeah, if it was the last thing in the world to read.
It would not be a terrible thing.
I guess that's praise, kind of.
Yeah, you can take it either or.
Oh, my phone just died, but that's fine.
No, Jake just died. Yes, your phone died, but also Jake died.
Okay. Can you boot me? Why isn't it leaving? Okay.
All right, you're back.
Okay, yeah, I don't know why, like, you guys froze, but I could still hear you.
Yeah.
I guess cut this out in editing, but yeah, I'm still recording on Audacity, so that's fine.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and we just won't have video for this very end part because my phone died.
So right
All
now,
right.
yeah, recording through the studio, but using the phone. Anyway.
So yeah, basically, it's not a terrible book. It's just not super interesting. You know, has some good things, but mostly it was just kind of boring. So yeah, I think that overall our general consensus is that it was just all right, but not great.
Probably not the worst thing we've read.
Yeah,
That's 100%.
Certainly not.
Yeah, certainly not the worst thing we've read.
But also not the best either.
Yeah, it's a very middle.
I would actually say that of the worst things we've read, I guess in my list, you know, when we did that start of the year year roundup, definitely wouldn't even come close to making that list. So
yeah, no, I don't think it wouldn't make the worst list. It wouldn't make the best list. It is a solid middle.
Yeah, if we had a top 5 boring, this would probably be up there.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to the Comic Panel. I'm Cody.
I'm Talon.
And I'm Jacob.
And we will see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. You can catch our show as it airs on Mondays from 5 to 7 p.m. on KSUA 91.5 FM, the People's Radio in Fairbanks, Alaska. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Comic Panel, It's Comic Time. You can find The Comic Panel anywhere you listen to podcasts. Find us on Facebook at It's Comic Time, Instagram at _comic_panel, and Twitter at The Comic Panel 1. There, you will get updates on when we air on KSUA and when an episode is uploaded to YouTube and to the podcast. Have a great rest of your day.